Hey, it's Mack with PriceActionTradingSystem.com, and it is Tuesday. It is September the 29th. This will be our chart lesson for today. And in the end today, we just had a two-tiered trading range, and show you this real quick. This is the upper tier of the range, and you can see that it's basically a perfect measured move there. See that top to bottom, and then top to middle, and then middle to the bottom, and it's perfect, uh, almost exact measured move. And then if you look at the overshoot, there's the overshoot at the top, and what do you know, you get basically a measured overshoot at the bottom. And so that's a good clue that you already really had this overshoot to measure that by. So that gives you something else to help determine if you've got your highs and your lows and all right. A lot of times people ask me how I found these across here. Well, I found where we got the most touches, with including the closes usually, and it started over here on this side, right here. You can see that's pretty much, but we did overshoot it. We shot through, and notice where we get most of the touches at the top, but we also shot through at the top. So that's how I do that. So for all intents and purposes, this is a range day. We had what looked like a possible two-tiered trading range working higher. We came up short up here, and then we bounced off of it a couple of times here, but then shot through, and we never really got a retest either. So but really what happened was the two-tiered trading range is the bigger pattern, and it takes over. So not to say that this trend line looks relatively valid to me, and we couldn't get back up to that high, and then we got into this two-tiered working down. Notice the break here, a couple of legs down, and then we had one working up. We never could get a retest. I mean, the market's still kind of weak. It looked like we were going to try to trade up, and we couldn't, and we just ended up trading down. We really closed almost unchanged for the day. Actually, we might have closed up slightly because the close yesterday was this big, thicker red line, and we closed a little higher than that today. It's not by much, but the market can say, hey, it closed up a couple of points today. But really, we were just all over both sides of that midline right there. 1875 kind of seems to be the pivot area today, and we were pivoting both sides of that. So, but let's back out, talk about the trades, and go from there. But just stepping back one more second, I can't emphasize enough how important it is on days like this to use these shorter term trend lines, because they really, really help to keep you on the right side of the market. And so I suggest you use them. Uh, they help quite a bit. And for the most part, the shorter term ones have been holding out and working really well. So just keep that in mind. But when I came in, we had this channel working up. We actually had a break at a new high, and it looked like we were working down, and we just kind of went into a trading range. The first trade I saw was right at the 7 o'clock hour, right as I came in this morning. Notice you got a new low, first entry, pull back second entry, and you can treat that like a failed second entry short, but more than anything, it's a bounce. Notice that we bounced off that level multiple times, so it's a chance to enter on a smaller bar. It's kind of a neutral type bar, but you can treat it like a trap, and it lets you get in. You could use a stop here, but it just barely gives you enough room to get out before getting back here. So you might consider using a limit order. You could have got filled on it. It wouldn't have mattered. It went on higher anyway. Um, but notice this. Um, Notice that we had the break here in the new high, and then we kind of just went into this trading range. So, but at the same time, I still think a lot of people were pushing, looking for another new high. It could have been that some people saw it like this, and that this was the first break. And I don't know that that's necessarily wrong. It does fit there. You can see that. Maybe this is more of a shorter term than the one I had first, and then this is more of a longer term. So either way, it looked like we were trying to push for another new high. You don't want to enter this close to that high, because this is what happens to you. You get trapped, and it takes off running the other direction. Let me make this a little bit bigger. It's tempting to enter right here off of this bar, but this is really your signal bar here. Just like on this next one, this is your signal bar. But what I liked was you had your double top, and then you made a little lower high here. You couldn't even really get back up and touch the resistance area, and you got this big bearish bar. But it's a failed break out of this smaller trading range here, and so you figure you're probably going to come back to here maybe. So when you got this bearish bar here, when prices broke below it, I would put my limit order back to one tick below this, which is your signal bar, and it would have pulled back and filled you, and then the bottom just kind of drops. And it looks like it's going to bounce here. It holds momentarily, and then it shoots on through, then it pulls back. It's the first break of this little trend line right here. But it's a failed second entry long. Notice this new swing high, first entry, pull back, this is second entry. So you're probably going to trap some people here. There's enough room to get out before you get back to this low. Doesn't really matter, it shoots on through. But you got a lot of clues here. You got the double top, on the wider double top, then you got a triple top almost as well, and then you got the smaller. This is still like a little double top. And notice how it shoots right through the EMA. I mean, it doesn't even check up there. It just shoots right through, pulls back. So I like going short there. It was tempting to go short again here, but you've already got a break in a new low. So you need something like this, which is this like a trap. Notice this goes one tick higher than this previous bars here, and it instantly turns down. I mean, when you see that, when it looks kind of bullish and it breaks higher, and it turns and just runs straight out the other side, have you a stop waiting there, because that is a good sign that you probably caught a trap, and we're probably going to get another leg down at least like this one. And if by drawing this line off the top and pulling it down, you're going to have a bigger channel, then you may get a measured move all the way down here, which turns out to be what happens. So this was a really nice setup here. I like this one. And this one, by the time we're getting down here and it ticks higher again and then turns back down, this is another failed second entry long, because this is higher than that high. So notice that this is a new high, pulls back first entry long, pull back second entry long, it fails. It's that trap. And you got to be thinking we're coming down here, and at the very least, we're probably coming back down to test the lows again. And sure enough, we test that to the tick, and it turns up. It's tempting to go short right here. You don't have it's a bearish bar, but it doesn't close on its low. It's not super bearish. It's a first entry. Several different reasons that I think that, hey, you better skip this one. There's not a lot of room to scalp out from here. So I don't like that one. In case anybody asks about that one, I think you're better off to skip it. It would have worked, but hey, you're already risking. You've already had your break way up here, and you've pretty much, I would call that the first leg. You might want to call that one, but I think it's this one, because it's straight down and then you get your break, and so you're looking for a measured move, and guess where it's at? It's right in there, and you've almost already hit it. We ended up going a little bit lower. So, it's getting risky entering again in here. So that's the reason I didn't mark that one. And then we bounce. You really don't get a good chance to go long here. It's tempting to enter here, but this is so neutral that I don't like going long yet. You need to wait on a second entry, and you never really get one. It just runs straight up. So you really don't get a good opportunity to enter this trade. Now, you might have, if you really want to be super aggressive, since this is a good bit away from the EMA, and it is bouncing exactly where we expected this to be, and it did bounce off what looks like the lower trend line, even though we don't have enough price action to really confirm it yet. So I'm willing to give that one a green one if you want to be real aggressive, but I think you're better off to skip it. And unfortunately, you just don't really get another chance to enter this one until way up here. You get a second entry long, but I don't think I want to go long right there either. And then it pulls back, you get a first entry, and then it pulls back and you get a second entry. And this is the first break of this really strong move up. So you figure you're going to get a retest of that high. And quick, easy move, and then it comes back down and it tests that midpoint again. Notice how it bounced right off that midpoint. And so now you got a double bottom and you got another reversal bar, and it went lower and then turns and goes out the upside. I'd probably wait on this bar and then just go long above it, or you might let it break high and put a limit order and try to get a little better entry, but you can just go long there because we're probably headed back to here, and that's exactly where it goes before it pulls back, and then it takes off up again. And I marked this one green because it's a little risky. There's not a lot of room before you get to this high. But it is a failed second entry short. Notice this low, first entry, pull back, second entry. You got a little push lower there, but this was the first bigger move. So on a bigger picture, this is a failed second entry short. And but it's still real aggressive. And this is your signal bar, and it's a huge signal bar. So what you might do is if it broke above here, you might try to get in way back here, see if it pulled back. I can't remember how far what you might have gotten back in, maybe right at the high. No, I'm not sure if you could have got in more than a tick or two back in, but I think you're better off to skip that one. It's right into these highs, and you see it turned around. There's a good chance it touches again, and just like it did here, and traps you and goes lower. So I think you're better off just to skip that trade. Although you do have a little more room, and if you use the limit order and it worked, then I'm okay with it. So I will mark that one green for that reason. But notice what we break above this big wider double top, and it's probably 1, 2, 3, 4 times we've tested it. And of course, it's probably going to fail. And guess what it does? You get a double top here. You almost could take this first entry, but again, I always say you're better off to wait on the second entry, and you get that right here. Look how bearish that bar is. We're still a good ways away from the EMA. Definitely even further away from the former resistance that should act as support before we get interested in anything going higher. And if you take this one trade, this thing rockets through. Look how it goes. It gets a little resistance at the EMA, not much, and then it shoots right through, pulls back, and it just keeps going. And you really don't want to enter way down here. You could treat this like a breakout pullback short off of this right here. It goes a tick lower, bounces, and then turns down. And but you probably would not have had this midline or anything in there. And if you could see that midline, maybe, but you probably don't have that yet because you don't have this trend line in place yet. You might have worked off the lower, but it wouldn't have fit properly yet. So I don't think you want to go short right there, and you definitely don't want to go long right here. There's a second entry long, and that is a bit of a reversal bar. It's a good way away from the EMA, and this is kind of a range day. So, you know what, I'm willing to give that a green now that I kind of look at it after the fact and think about it a minute. Aggressive traders probably going to take that second entry long, knowing that there's that much room between there and the EMA. I mean, those are generally on range days when you get that far away from the EMA. They're generally good trades. So, but then you get the trend line working up. You get a break here, move to a new high, and guess where it turns down? Right at the high of the range. That kind of sets the trend line as well. And once you draw that and bring it down here, it pretty much fits at the low end. It's a small bar, so we're a little further away from the EMA, so you get a real low risk entry right there, and it turns out to be another great trade. Look at it go. And even though this is a first entry on this chart, notice this move up, then a correction, and then another leg up. It's actually a little two-legged correction and another leg up. So on a smaller chart, that'd be a second entry short as well. So that gives you another reason to think, hey, I might want to take this short here. And look at it. It originally went right through the EMA. It ends up closing back up in here, and then it opens and just turns. I mean, and those were two really. If you could just get those two moves right there, um, you could have a nice day. And there's your first leg, and there's your second. So you're looking for a measured move down to here, and look where it gets. And it only bounces early because it hits this lower trend line. Um, so that gives you a good target to shoot for there. And this was the first entry here. It is off the EMA, and we didn't quite have a measured move yet. So it's tempting, but I think you're better off to wait. And then you get another double top. But notice how everything's kind of bouncing across that midline. So I'm not crazy about that one. I think you got to wait. And you do get a failed break higher here. I might give that one a green one. It is the first break of the possible trend line, but more importantly, there's like a triple top across there. And you can see that, and that's a failed break higher, and you're looking for a retest of the low. So there's some reasons to enter that. It is the second entry too, and even though that doesn't look like it, that's a really bearish bar. So I mean, this one is almost borderline being red. I mean, I could actually make this one red. I think I'll go ahead and make it red, to be honest with you. It is so close. Second entry short, failed break above all that resistance there, first break of this trend line, and then you get a second entry short there, but it's right into that support, so I don't like it. But when it breaks lower and turns up, and you get that failed second entry long there, you got a trap. And I like this one. I like this big bearish bar. The way I would play this was I would let this bar close first. I wouldn't go short below that bar. But when this one closed this bearish and it broke below, I would come back and put me a sell stop right in there, and you would have got filled, and you could have watched this thing drop on down. You could actually put a stop there, consider it, because it's a failed second entry long, and it's probably going to trap people looking to get long off that support there. But the way that thing shot through the EMA there and pulled back twice and tested it and failed both times, you figure we're going lower. And so I like that one. And then you pull back. This one's kind of tricky right here. You got your break here in a new low, but it's tempting to go short right there. That's a second entry short, a big bearish bar. So if you did get short right there, by the time this doji closed right here, I would have exited this thing. I would have taken whatever it would have given me, break even, a tick, or whatever. I wouldn't have hung on to that. So I could see people getting tripped up there. That's real tempting. But when it broke higher and then turned down and went lower, now all it turns out to be is like a long trap instead of a short trap. At first it looks like it's going to be a short trap, and it just goes one tick higher and then turns down. This is why a lot of times, if you've got enough room, I usually use a 2-tick stop instead of a 1-tick stop, because you will see that quite often go 1 tick and then turn and go exactly where you think it's going to go. So that was kind of an interesting setup there. Notice that new high, and then you get a first entry long, pull back a second entry long, and it fails. Go short right there because it's right back inside that trend line. And you may get a measured move like that from here. In fact, you would almost think that that's what you would get. And guess where that is? It's down there to the other low. And so you would almost expect to get a new low, to get that measured move there. We end up getting it, but it doesn't come till over here. So I was a little surprised. I wasn't completely surprised it bounced here, because we did have a break way up here. But generally, you'll get 2 legs. Most of the time, they're very equal type legs, and we just couldn't get it here. We were finding too much support across here. And look how it runs. It goes right through the EMA, pulls back, turns back up. That's not enough, though. You need that next try, which is like the failed second entry short, and then it turns up. I like going long right there, maybe even dropping a limit order in after it breaks higher. But you could just go long on a stop there, figuring that, hey, look at it creeping up this trend line, and turns out to be a pretty good trade. You get a couple more bounces off that trend line, but you got to go high into this resistance across here. I didn't drag that line across. You can see that line comes in, that resistance comes in all the way across here. You got your first break outside here, and so I didn't like taking it. I was afraid you'd get trapped here. It would have worked, but you've got a break and no new high yet. So I think you want to skip this one. There's a failed second entry long there, but by the time it triggers, you got all these bars stacked up, so it looks like congestion. I wouldn't take anything out of that. Just sit tight, wait and see what happens. And this is where patience comes in. And then guess what? It turns down right off that line again. You don't want to take the first interest. That's a big bearish bar. I think you need to wait on the second entry, which comes here. And again, it's a fairly bearish bar, and it's right off the trend line there. And this one just finally runs down, straight down to the measured move that we were looking for. Multiple different ways we were looking for that measured move. So that was a great entry right there, and just that one entry takes you right into the 2 o'clock hour, but that was worth several points right there. So a lot of volume today. You can see all the bars, mostly just a range day, but a lot of volume, a lot of trades. It was a good trading day, and I got a couple of messages from people saying they were done early today. So if you called a couple of these early trades, you could be done real quick. So, and I know there were several that were, and so that's great that people are getting it. And I've been getting several emails lately. It seems like people saying that, hey, the light bulb's going off. You know, you were right by hanging with it and studying my charts every day, which I say that every day, but some people just will not. They don't understand that. They're just too eager to get in there and trade. And don't be so eager to give your money away, because the best analogy I can come up with is that trying to step into this market with limited experience is like walking out onto the tarmac today and getting in a jet fighter, and you don't even have a pilot's license, you've never flown, and trying to go up and fight other skilled ace pilots and expecting to win and not get shot down. What are the odds? If you can even get that plane off the ground, the odds are you're going to get shot down quick by somebody that does this every day and is experienced at it. And trading is no different. Once you get into this market, you are going up against skilled ace traders that understand and can read this chart, and they know what's going on, and the odds are you're going to just give your money over to them. So do not be so eager to jump in and trade live. You cannot read a price action manual and read it once or twice or even a few times and get on here and trade for a few weeks or a few months and get in here, and that's not enough time. Trust me when I tell you that. Nobody else is going to tell you that. You're only going to hear that from me most likely, because I'm the only one going to tell you the truth. And don't believe that there's some holy grail. Don't believe that there's some indicator. Don't believe that there's some strategy that you're going to get on here tomorrow and start making money consistently. Yeah, you might get a winning trade or two, but that's the best you're going to do until you learn to read this chart and understand the language it speaks. And it does indeed speak a language that, once you can speak it, gives you an advantage that is just unbelievable. And until you can do it, you won't quite believe me. You won't quite grasp it. But trust me, keep working, keep studying, put in the time, put in the effort and the hard work, and at some point the light bulb will go off. And once it does, you will start to get better. And trust me, the longer you do this, the better you will get once you start to get it. It's amazing how good you can get. And nobody believes that until they do it. And I always tell people, you won't understand what I'm saying now until you actually really get it. And then you'll go, man, I remember Mack saying that. It just didn't click. It didn't make sense, or I didn't believe it, or I didn't understand it, but now it makes so much sense what he said. And so you'll get there one day if you're willing to put in the time and the effort and stay the course. And it's a long course. So don't think you can do this quickly, because I don't care how smart you are. I don't care how good an eye you got. I don't care how long you've already been doing this. If you've been doing the wrong things, um, you're basically starting from scratch, even if you've been trading for years and years and years. So anyway, I'm going to wrap it up, get off my soapbox for the day. But this is Mack with PriceActionTradingSystem.com, and we'll be back to do it again tomorrow. So we'll see you next time.